Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head back over to America, and this is a collaboration beer involving two breweries who are really quite well known over here in Europe now, and it's one that we got through the small partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden in early March if I'm remembering correctly, but it's meant to be an absolute monster of a beer. It was only released back in January over in the States, but you know, I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So for this one we're going to have a look at the barrel-aged Bamburana, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a collaboration Imperial Stout between Oskar Brewery, who are from Lyons in Colorado, and Cigar Brewing, who are from Tampa in Florida. This guy, as I mentioned, comes in at 12.2%, and they're describing it as an Imperial Stout aged in whiskey and brandy barrels with figs, dates and Bamburana wood spirals added. So yeah, this one sounds like it will be an absolute monster of a beer, and I'm really curious about this because apparently this is named after the Bamburana wood from South America, which is supposed to have some really nice aging qualities to it when you use it in barrels and stuff like that. So I think this will be a very interesting beer, and it's definitely one of the more adventurous ones I've seen coming from either brewery over the last little while. These breweries of course are owned by the same kind of parent company, which I believe is a little bit more related to Oskar Blues than it is to Cigar City, but both very good breweries within their own right, and as I say, they're very good at producing imperial stouts and stuff like this. You've got 1050 of course from Oskar Blues, and you've got the Marshal Zhukov Russian Imperial Stout, which I reviewed for you just a couple of videos back too. So I think this is going to be an awesome beer. We'll see how we get on with it. We'll keep an open mind to it, but I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. I'm really curious about this. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, then just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done both from Oskar Blues and from Cigar City. No doubt I will do some more from both in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then for Oskar Blues first off then, because I believe they are the home brewery in this. This one, from what I gather, was actually brewed in Colorado. So, Oskar Blues Brewery was founded as a restaurant by Dick Dale Katakis in Lyons in Colorado back in 1997, and 2 years after founding it, he began brewing beer in the basement. But the brewery are credited by some as having been the first craft brewer in the US to can their beers with the release of their flagship beer, which is the Dale's Pale Ale, of course, back in 2002. By sort of 2010ish though, there was many other breweries doing this, and it's particularly prominent in Colorado actually. A lot of the breweries in Colorado are very proud of how kind of environmentally conscious they are. But in 2009, this brewery had founded the Burning Can event, which brought together different craft brewers who were canning their beers, and now all of their beers are distributed in resealable aluminium containers, and they're actually the largest craft brewery by volume in the US to do so, and they're also the second largest craft brewery by volume in Colorado as well. I believe the other one, the one that they're behind, is New Belgium, but I think they're the biggest craft brewery in the US now, if I'm remembering correctly. But in 2013, they also opened up a satellite brewery in Brevard, North Carolina, which can brew between 40 and 85,000 barrels of beer per year. This has been expanded since it was opened again, of course, and the original Oskar Blues Bar and Grill is still open in Lyons, and it has 45 tap beers, which, you know, is very impressive. But they've also now got another brewery in Austin, Texas, and they're brewing somewhere in the region of 150,000 barrels of beer per year, which again is very impressive. And they do have a partnership now where they own a couple of different breweries. Oskar Blues are in partnerships with other craft breweries kind of around the US now, which is very cool. But they're known, of course, for the 1050 Imperial Stout, the Mama's Little Yellow Pills. I've reviewed those for you. The Dale's Pale Ale, of course, is kind of still their flagship beer, and it's been a good while actually since I've had one of those. It's a beer that you can get quite easily back home in Scotland in the supermarkets and stuff like that, so that shows you just how widely available this beer is now, from being a little small brewery in Colorado to having their beers available in supermarkets in countries over in Europe. I think that's pretty damn impressive, but they are very well regarded, and it's cool to see a brewery that's producing things on that scale still being experimental and coming up with stuff like this. So yeah, if you haven't tried some of the Oskar Blues beers, then I really recommend that you do. These guys are probably one of the best known American craft breweries these days, and Colorado is a very highly regarded craft beer state, I guess. Colorado and California are the kind of two old boys on the block when it comes to craft beer in America. So yeah, Oskar Blues you definitely want to check out, and you know, New Belgium, of course, everyone knows them as well. But yeah, a very interesting brewery, this one. If you want to read a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there, including the beer releases and stuff like this. So anyway, on to the second half of the brewery notes and to the Florida side of the brewery. So Cigar City Brewing, as I've told you before, are based in Tampa in Florida, and they were founded back in 2007 by Joey Redner, who'd previously worked for Dunedin Brewing and as a beer writer for the Tampa Bay Times. So he hired Wayne Wambles as his brewmaster back in 2008, and the brewery produced their first beers in January of 2009. And this brewery are known for their limited edition Hanafu Imperial Stout, and they also host a beer festival every March to celebrate its release. And this is one that I really want to try. I've heard it's an absolutely beautiful beer, that. But as of March 2016, Cigar City are in a partnership with Oskar Blues, who, as I've mentioned to you before, are from Lyons and Longmont in Colorado. I think you can mention for them as well. But the reason for the partnership was that Joey wanted to expand the capacity of the brewery, but he didn't want to borrow money to do this. So their own facility in Tampa actually had an output of only 60 BBLs, but they were contract brewing at a number of other facilities such as Brew Hub and things like this. But this has now changed because of the partnership, and they've been growing their capacity ever since, and their beers have actually been reaching here in Europe and things like that, and going to Australia and stuff like this too. So since they've gone into this partnership with Oskar Blues, they seem to be doing very well, and they've expanded and they're becoming a lot more well known. And we do seem to be getting more and more different Floridian craft beers over here in Europe now, which is also very cool. So yeah, it's, you know, that this thing that's happened with Cigar City Brewing, I think these guys were regarded as, you know, these guys are kind of like the big boy of Florida, if you like. You always get breweries from different states in America that are very well known, and Cigar City were the kind of the big boys of the Floridian craft beer scene. But there's a lot of other smaller breweries popping up now, and we're getting we're getting more and more of the Floridian craft beers, which is obviously very cool. But yeah, if you haven't tried any of the Cigar City beers, then you definitely want to check them out. The High Ally is a really nice IPA, and of course you've got the Marshall Zhukov Imperial Stout if you fancy something at the darker side of the spectrum. But again, that's all you really need to know about Cigar City Brewing for the moment, and I'm sure we'll return to these guys again in the future. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. We can get on to the beer itself. So as I said this at the start of the video, this one comes in at 12.2%, and it's an Imperial Stout aged in whiskey and brandy barrels with figs, dates and Bamburana wood spirals. From what I understand, they brew separate batches of it in the whiskey and the brandy and then age them in the whiskey and the brandy barrels. They blend those together, and they put it in tanks again with the Bamburana wood spirals. I'm not sure exactly at what point they add the figs and dates, if they're put into the whiskey and brandy barrels as well, or if they're put in the tank later with the wood spirals. But yeah, you know, it should be a really interesting beer. This one, I like this thing as well that they've got on the side, Canarchy. This is obviously a partnership that is involved with that festival I was talking about, with breweries that only can their beers. But yeah, this is a really nicely presented beer, this one. It's more kind of along the lines of the Oskar Blues style of artwork rather than the Cigar City one, from what I remember, but very nicely presented nonetheless. And yeah, I guess without further ado, let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting then. I'm just really curious to see how this one turns out. This one is a 355ml can. You know, of course, it's an American brewery. They use these silly American measurements for volume, but that's understandable. So yeah, I always complain, you know, I don't know why America doesn't switch to the metric system. Use the 330s or the 500s, you know, the half litres. But yeah, minor complaint, who cares as long as the beer's good. And to be fair with this, actually, if you've got 355 millilitres or 12 fluid ounces, whatever the hell that is, you actually get an extra 25 millilitres of beer, so that's nothing to be sniffed at. So yeah, maybe that's just my Scottishness coming out, and probably my Swedishness as well actually these days. But yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely dark, definitely a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If I hold this up to the light, there's absolutely no colour coming. There's no change to the colour of that at all. Actually, it's so just you know, it really is. This is one of the darkest beers I've ever seen. There's about a half finger of frothy, I would say very dark head on this one. That's a really dark tan head that you've got on this beer. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look very nice. So, and when you open this beer up, or you open the can up, you can really smell some of these lovely oaky barrel-aged notes out of the beer. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this. There's nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you know it's an Imperial Stout. This is a monster. That's a beautiful aroma. Yeah. So I'd be curious to know whether it's American bourbon barrels or whether it's Scotch barrels that they've used for this, because it has this almost earthiness to the barrel aging, and you know, Scottish whisky is known to be a little bit more smoky and peaty and earthy and things like that, and there is an element of that to the aroma in this beer. You really can smell that, but at the same time it does actually have some of the you know, it does have some more of the sweetness that you get from the American bourbons. I always find that American bourbon whiskey is quite a bit sweeter than the stuff we would drink back home in Scotland. It's just, even with the craft beers and stuff like that, the American takes on these styles are always just a bit sweeter and sugary. I think the Americans are very into sweet things. But yeah, the way that the barrel aging comes out of this, and it might be the brandy, right enough. Brandy is from what I remember, is always a very kind of, it's quite sugary and caramelly and stuff like this. I always remember brandy being like that. So the woody kind of complexities that you get to this beer are really interesting. You can smell that lovely oaky smoothness. There's a little bit of vanilla in there. It's almost got a little touch of the spicy note as well, which I'm guessing is coming from the Bamburana. I've heard that it's supposed to give you this kind of spicy note, but it's a very smooth spice actually. It's almost just like it's not peppery or anything like that. It's almost a little bit slightly nutmeggy or something like that. Yeah, it's almost just like a little bit of this beer is quite cakey in terms of its aroma as well. It's almost like a kind of alcoholic fruit cake, but the red fruity qualities are very smooth. You can pick up straight away the dates and the figs out of this one. It's got a lovely, just kind of juicy, but also very smooth, fruity aroma to it, and these fruits jump out at you straight away. But the backbone really is very kind of cakey. It smells kind of like it almost smells a little touch like Christmas pudding, this beer, but not quite as well fired, if that makes sense. It's like a sweet Christmas pudding, this beer, if you like. It's a lovely aroma, it really is. It's quite hard to put your finger on everything that's going on in this one, but there's a lovely bit of chocolate in this. You know, you can pick out those slightly darker, higher cocoa chocolates. I think it's got about an 80% cocoa chocolate in there, but there's also some nice kind of milky chocolate aromas in there. I don't think there's too much in the way of brown sugar in this one, outside of those outside of the brandy notes that the beer has. But you can really smell the brown sugars coming from the whiskey side of things, and also from the brandy side of things are definitely noticeable there. This beer, in some ways the aroma actually reminds me of the whiskey barrel aged Galben Carolus Cuvée Van de Keyser that I had from Belgium. This beer, the aroma of this one really has some similarities to that, the way that the brown sugars come out. It's almost biscuity actually as well, which is really interesting. This is definitely one of the more complex Imperial Stout aromas that I've come across, and that we've only really talked about the malt base with this one so far. You can pick out there's a little touch of earthiness from the hop, but it's quite a smooth earthy quality. There's a little bit of grassiness in there. And you can also tell there's a little bit of red fruit coming from the hops as well. You've got the more juicy, figgy and datey notes, which are from the fruits that they've actually added into the tank and aged the beer with. But you can tell there's a little bit of an almost plummy raisin quality, which will be extracted from the hops that they've used when actually making this beer. But it smells really interesting. This one, as I say, the spicy character is really unusual, and I think that's coming from the Bamburana wood that they've used in here. So yeah, just have a go at this, at the aroma of this, and see what you think. It's definitely one of the more unusual aromas I've come across from Imperial Stouts in the last little while. It's one of the more complex ones. A lot of the Imperial Stouts I've had recently have been very kind of straight up, but this one is one that definitely will throw you a little bit of a curveball. So yeah, let's have a taste of this beer then. So this one is the Bamburana, a 12.2% Imperial Stout aged in brandy and whisky casks, and then aged with figs, dates and Amburana wood spirals, from Oskar Blues Brewery in Longmont or Lyons in Colorado, and Cigar City Brewing, who are from Tampa in Florida, both over in the US. Let's get stuck into this beer then. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah. This beer is a monster, and it's a beautiful monster at that. I've only had one sip of this, but this is an absolute beast. I'll say straight away, they've done a nice job of this. It does give you a good bit of alcohol warmth, beware of that with this, but they've certainly done a nice job of this. If you can get a hold of this beer, have a taste of it. Yeah, that's really nice. Where to start with this one? There's a hell of a lot going on in it. The thing I'm noticing about this beer is that it has, the way that the fruits come out is a lot sharper than you would think from the aroma. It starts off and you just get this nice little touch of sharpness at the front of your palate, and I really like what they're doing with that. So you can feel with this beer, there's a little bit of that roasted black malt there, that just blankets the middle of your tongue initially, but on top of that you get the smoother, high cocoa chocolates in there, which is really nice. It's an 80–90% cocoa chocolate that comes out of this one. In the middle of the palate you're getting some of these brown sugary notes. The barrel aging qualities are really infused throughout the whole beer. You can feel that nice oaky woody quality just infused in the middle of just infused throughout the middle of your palate there. As you come further forward along the side of the tongue though, the woodiness, the oakiness just pushes its way out a little bit more, and you've got more of the kind of brown sugary notes there towards the front of the palate as well. In the very centre of your tongue you can feel it's almost like a kind of sugarcane caramel wafer type brown sugar that you're getting out of this beer, which is really interesting. Yeah, and it has that when you barrel age these beers, the whiskey and the brandy elements that are coming out of this as well. The brandy is giving it, I think, a more sort of grainy brown sugar as well, like that wafery flavour that I'm talking about. Those flavours are coming out a little bit more towards the front of the tongue, but you can feel them in the very centre of your palate too. This beer doesn't have a sort of sweet caramel to it, if you like, or a kind of big treacle molasses. For me, this one's mainly about the chocolate and the smoothness of the wood and that sugar caney sort of quality that's coming from both from the whiskey and the brandy side of things. But the way that the Amburana wood is coming out, it's got a spice to it. It just has this kind of underlying spicy quality, and it is almost just like a sort of fruitcake. It does remind me a little bit of Christmas pudding. It's quite funny, my dad's birthday is in February, but he loves Christmas pudding, so my mother always makes him a Christmas pudding, and this beer really reminds me of my mum's Christmas pudding. It's really unusual actually to come across something like this. I need to get another can and give this to my dad. But yeah, it's a very cakey, slightly spicy Imperial Stout, this one, but it's got a hell of a lot going on in it, and it's really nice actually. I really like this beer. And it's definitely one of these ones that you definitely drink this as a treat. This isn't one that you would drink too often, otherwise it would kind of lose its novelty a little bit. And I don't know if it is a limited edition right enough, it probably is. But they've done a nice job of this, and I'm guessing that if it's popular enough, since it's involving the two of the breweries, they probably will actually make this one a regular. But yeah, it's one of the more kind of spicy barrel aged imperial stouts that I've had, but it really just works, this beer. And as I say, the further you go into the aftertaste, the more the woody notes come out, the more your palate adjusts to the kind of sugar-caney, brown sugary notes that you get out of this one, and it's got a lovely touch of a kind of spicy note in there as well. On the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that just smooths out a little bit. You get a little slight hint of a floral quality at the front corners of your palate, then round the very front curve of your tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy. And then behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that oily bubble, where those nice juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. Although that said, with this one, remember you've got figs and dates that are added to this, and when you add fruit to the beer, it always suppresses a little bit of the green side of the hops. It always suppresses a little touch of the IBUs, and you can pick that up in this beer, particularly in the aftertaste. So yeah, on the hoppy side of the fruits then, behind the front curve of the palate, you can pick up that there's a little bit of a sharper, raisiny quality to this beer. The further you go into the aftertaste, the more it evolves to be a little bit more of a kind of sultana quality. From what I remember, sultanas are just different. It's just that the raisins are always the kind of red, purpley grapes that are dried out, but the sultanas, from what I remember, is a mixture of different grapes. And it really has a little bit more of that kind of quality to it. It has a mixture. It has a little bit of the raisiny sharpness in the beginning, but then it evolves to be more of a kind of sultana flavour. The figs and the dates are really coming out around the kind of front edge of your tongue. You can really feel that juicy aspect to the beer around there. And as I said, when you add fruit to the beer, regardless of what point you do it, it always suppresses a little bit of the IBU to the beer. That said, this one's an Imperial Stout, and I think you're looking at about 50 IBUs for this one. It's not quite as big as some of the ones, but I think you're looking around 40-50 IBUs for this beer. But you can feel the dates and the figs just pressing down on the IBUs of this beer a little bit, but it's got a lovely kind of red fruity sharpness, which is very, very nice. I like how this whole beer is going together. There's a whole load of complexity to this one. It's quite a spicy Imperial Stout. It's got some of the sweetness, it's got some of these lovely wooden sort of woody notes to it as well, and the way that the brown sugar comes out, it's almost like a kind of caramel wafer, sugar cane kind of thing, but that's from the brandy and from the whiskey. And going through the flavour of this one, I would suspect that it's more of a I think it is Scottish whisky barrels they've used to this one. You can just tell from the flavour. Like I say, the American bourbon is always a little bit sweeter and more brown sugary than the Scotch whisky. And from the way that the whisky flavours, the sort of barrel aged flavours are coming out of this one, I'm pretty sure that they've used Scotch whisky ones for this as well. Although, in fairness, it might be Irish. It doesn't say. They've spelt it with W-H-I-S-K-E-Y. Now, the question is how much you read into that, because whisky from Scotland is always spelt W-H-I-S-K-Y, and you're only allowed to spell it like that if it's from Scotland. If it's from somewhere else, like Ireland, that's when you use K-E-Y. So I'm not sure if there's something to be read into that. Maybe it's Irish whisky barrels they've used or something like that, and I'm sure if it was bourbon barrels they would just call it bourbon barrels, because obviously there is a difference in definition there. But yeah, I'm not sure how much to read into that, but I think that they've used, I got a feeling they've used Scotch barrels in this. So I'd be interested to know for sure. It didn't say on the website exactly what barrels they'd used, they just said whisky barrels. But this is a lovely, spicy, but also sweet Imperial Stout, and the way the brown sugars come out on this is really nice. It's very cakey also, which is thing. This is, to be fair, I think this is probably one of the more unusual Imperial Stouts I've come across in the last while, but if you get the chance to try this one, I really highly recommend that you do. There's a hell of a lot going on in this, and it's definitely one, as a beer reviewer, it will test your palate. So yeah, just have a go at it for yourself and see what you think. But they've done a great job with this, and I'm not surprised from either brewery. Oskar Blues have got 1050, which is awesome, and Cigar City have got Marshal Zhukov, which is a beast of a beer. So it's not surprising that they've come together and produced something like this. It's just a bit of creativity within the Imperial Stout category. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, I would say it's definitely a full-bodied beer. Carbonation's very smooth. It's got a lovely, big, oily mouthfeel to it, but also it's got a bit of smoothness in there, which is really nice. There's a good little bit of IBU to this one. The hops are giving you a little bit of earthiness, but some of that's coming from the malt base too. I think about 50 IBUs to this beer, which is nice. Lovely little bit of fruity juiciness there, particularly when you go further into the aftertaste you start to get more of the juicy notes out of the fruit, but it has a little bit of a sharpness in the beginning. And the malt base has a good balance between the roasty qualities, some of the woody smoothness there, and also a little touch of sweetness. As I say, the sort of sugar, the brown sugary notes in this are a little bit more sugar caney, kind of caramel wafery kind of thing. This beer really does have an almost cakey element to it as well. It's got a little touch of a spicy note, but the main point to take away from a review here is that this is a beast of a beer, and I really do reckon that you should have a go at this for yourself and just see how you get on. So big thumbs up to both Oskar Blues and Cigar City for this one. They've pulled off something that I think is pretty damn special, I have to say. So hopefully this isn't the last we see of this beer. That's one of the downsides of the craft beer scene. You'll come across things like this every so often that are just, you know, really unusual but very, very awesome, and you know, they just disappear. They only do these things once, but you know, that's part of the charm, it's part of the curse, if you like. So yeah, we'll leave it at that for this beer. So this one was the Bamburana, a lovely Imperial Stout at 12.2% from Oskar Blues Brewing in Longmont, Lions in Colorado, and Cigar City, who are from Tampa in Florida. So yeah, an awesome beer, and just check it out if you get the chance. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section, but let me know what your favourite beers are from Oskar Blues and Cigar City as well, and hopefully I can review more from them in the near future. Check out my social media, but most importantly, have a go at this beer for yourself and just see what you think, because I thought this is a pretty damn special and quite complex beer. So until the next time, it's Landry just now, and I'll catch you guys later. The Bamburana from Oskar Blues and Cigar City from Lions in Colorado and Tampa in Florida, respectively, over in America. Slanja, Skull, check out this beer. Cheers.